Hey, what's up, everybody? Today we're going to take a look at Litecoin. We can see Litecoin, for the last several years has been really lackluster, but I think something interesting is developing in this massive range. And remember, this is one huge base, right? And you know what they say, the bigger the base, the higher in space, right? It feels like it's been an eternity since Litecoin has really showcased its, you know, earlier thunder that it used to show, right? A lot of it's been taken away from DeFi and different layer twos and the new and upcoming technology, AI, all these other coins, right? But I don't want you to think that Litecoin can't ever recover, right? Because basically it's on every single exchange. It's on all the major mainstream media news headlines, right? When you look at like Fox Business or CNBC, what do they have on the screen? It's always Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And Litecoin's not even in the top 10 anymore. So it's like, why do they keep showing it? Well, I think because so many people, disregard it. And I think there's going to be a reckoning for those people. Now, I personally am not holding Litecoin at the moment, but I'm definitely considering doing so. Now, will Litecoin ever break its all-time high? I believe yes. Here's the thing. When Litecoin exploded to the upside, right? That was in 2017 alongside Bitcoin. They both had a crash. They both had a retracement, right? And then they both came down in their C19 lows. And then Bitcoin went on into a bull market. Litecoin just made a double top. Now you can say that was bad, but I say that's good, right? Why is that good? Because it's all about, making money, right? So it's about percentages. If the rest of the market, for example, went up here and it went on its bull run and then it went into its bear market and then it's kind of recovering, then that means most of the coins are up here. Well, Litecoin's way the heck down here. So, when you look at that, that tells me, yeah, it's pretty bad, right? But it also tells me, hey, there could be opportunity here because there's obviously a deviation from the rest of the market. And XRP is the same way, right? It also had the same type of situation. So, what does this mean? Well, to me, it means Litecoin is continuing to develop its pattern. Well, what pattern is that? Well, there's a few things we can talk about. Well, the first thing, right, is we have a rise, we have a crash, and then we had a 3-wave retracement, right? And it retraced all the way back to the prior all-time high, right? So then we came back down into reaccumulation, and now we're going sideways. So we have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways. So what does that mean? Well, that means obviously we had the bull run, right? And then we had the bear market. We came up into a new bull run, but during the bull run, Litecoin only went into a retracement. So then it fizzled out and it made a double top. Now, double tops are meant to be broken, right? So that's important to understand. The other thing that's important to understand is we are moving very correctively. So here's our low, here's a higher low, and here's a higher low, right? That's another important thing. All of this is corrective behavior. So we are still technically in an uptrend, right? So we have our move to the upside and now we're basically flagging out. Now this is taking, a long time since 2017. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, right? So it's taken almost 7 years for this thing to, continue to develop. Now, the question is, what is it doing now? Well, again, I think we are in reaccumulation. So, a couple examples of reaccumulation is right here with H bar, right? We have a rise, we have a crash, we have a retracement, we go down into reaccumulation, we go sideways, and then we blast off. Here's another with chain link. We have a rise, we have a crash, we have a retracement, we go down into reaccumulation, right? We sort of went sideways in here, and then we blast off. Same thing with Ethereum. We have a rise, we have a crash, we go into a small retracement, we come down into reaccumulation, and essentially we're going sideways before we blast off. We could be seeing something similar here, like with Matic. We have a rise, crash, we come up in 3 in a retracement, we come down into reaccumulation, right? We have a low, we have a higher low, and now we're basically in reaccumulation. So you would think eventually this thing's going to start to take off. Now, sometimes the reaccumulation can be a regular ABC, right? ABC, where you have a rise, crash, retrace, and then you come down into reaccumulation, but you do take out the low. But it's really not labeled that. It's more of an ABC. But the thing with Litecoin, right, we are holding the lows. More so like this example with XRP, right? We have a rise, we have a crash, we have a retracement, we come down into reaccumulation, and we go sideways. This one actually went sideways for a while, but look, take a look at this. We have specifically the retracement. We have 1, 2, 3, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, and then we're sort of chopping around, and then boom, it was one of the biggest pumps in crypto back in the 2017, 2018 bull run. This thing went up massively, and it all stemmed from this reaccumulation. Interestingly, that's kind of what's happening now with XRP. You have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, and you're actually doing the same thing as you were back in the day. So rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, kind of looks like Litecoin, right? So, and a kind of a messy example would be Doge. You have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, blast off. And then finally we have the total market cap, basically more so Bitcoin than anything. We have a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, right? And then we go sideways in here before breaking out. So going back to Litecoin, again, we have the same thing, right? We have a rise, crash, we have 3 up for a retracement, we have 3 down into reaccumulation, and now we're going sideways. So this is called reaccumulation for a reason, because people are reaccumulating their positions. Now, why is this important more so than the rest of the market? Again, because when you look at, for example, Bitcoin, right? I mean, look where Bitcoin is relative to where Litecoin is and the rest of the market. So, again, during this time, the rest of the market went into a bull run. XRP, Litecoin, a lot of them didn't get to participate. They basically went into a retracement. So it was, no good back then. And then, but now, right, when we went into the bear market, it was much more devastating for a lot of coins because they went up so high, right? Whereas Litecoin basically just made a 3-wave move back down into reaccumulation. Still in percentage terms, it's still quite a bit. But then when you look at the recovery, right, a lot of coins are starting to, make their retracements. Now, Bitcoin is basically back at the all-time high, but I would say the majority of the market is still down here to around in here, somewhere in there. So from a percentage standpoint, from a risk standpoint, from a Fibonacci standpoint, right, you have Litecoin down here, you have the rest of the market sort of up here. So there's a sort of a deviation, right? So that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, right? But to me, when you combined the phases, basically, in reaccumulation and things like that, and then also the name Litecoin being on almost every exchange, being on the media, on the news all the time. I think it's on Robinhood and certain stock exchanges or certain stock apps, right? Like Robinhood. It's pretty vast. So it's definitely got a name. I would imagine an ETF would come at some point for Litecoin down the road. But let's dive into more of the analysis. So look at this. The all-time high was about $410. And right now we are actually ascending. So you could argue that it's some sort of massive ascending triangle. Now, I don't really like that because of how big it is, but just for the sake of argument, we are creating higher lows each and every time, which is important for accumulation, right? And then also focusing the attention back down here, right? We had this rather sharp move up and then this 3-wave move back down, right? And now we're starting to round out, and now we're starting to pick up a little bit. So to me, at the very least, we need a retracement back up into here, somewhere back up into here. I think eventually we'll get that retracement. So if you look at this as a crash, we still need a retracement. If Litecoin's going to die, I think it still needs to come up here. I don't think it's going to die. Remember, this is not financial advice. Nothing I say is financial advice. I could be totally wrong. Always know that. But just for the sake of argument, if Litecoin did get up here, then that's where, the rubber meets the road. That's where it's really got to showcase. Because if we start going back down again, and for example, breaking this low, then it's going to be a disaster. So, there's definitely a lot of risk involved with Litecoin because it hasn't performed. But to me, when you look at, like a stock like Amazon, right, it too had something similar where it had a rise, it had a crash, it had a retracement, and then it went sideways. And it didn't break the all-time high for like 10 years, right? So to me, I think eventually Litecoin will do that. Now, I look at Litecoin as sort of like a hodl, like an investing, just kind of set it and forget it until that day comes. And I think it will surprise a lot of people because a lot of people are sort of complacent on Litecoin. So let's talk about this over here. So in reaccumulation, it's interesting because, this is all choppy mess. But what I'm seeing here is, we came up, right? And we met some resistance. We came back down and we broke below the bull market support band, right? So that orange band there. And then we came back up and we broke above the bull market support band. We came down and now we back tested it. So that's sort of why I'm making this video, is because that was a very critical step for Litecoin to do. So, it's actually looking pretty decent at the moment. I mean, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can argue that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with a flat in the middle. So we have an A, a B, and a C, basically an expanding flat, right? Which is very bullish. And then we held the bull market support band, we broke above it. And if we zoom in even closer, we can see, right? Remember, all of crypto had that big liquidation event, which is why I'm thinking the bottom is just about in. And I really think the bottom is in for the altcoins, at least for now, because of that deleveraging and, basically resetting the order book, kind of a clean new slate. We came down very sharp. We came back up and we went sideways here, right? And then now we marked up in price, and now we're holding back above the bull market support band. So kind of like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we're sort of testing it. And what's interesting here is you could see all of these candles, right? As we came down, we back tested the top of this. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 candles, right? Confirming support, right? So usually you have resistance, you break out, and you come down and you back test previous resistance to make it the new support, so that we can continue to move up in price. Now, it could come up, right, in an A, B, and then one more push to the downside into a C for, kind of like sweeping lows before continuing higher, or it could be in now. Really, it doesn't matter on the small time frames. The point is, it's looking pretty decent for a bounce back into the retracement levels of this prior move. So, I mean, we're not even at the 50%. So I would say around $92 to $100 would be a good area of interest for Litecoin to make its way up. And then from here, it'll be interesting to see how that affects, right? Because you have point A, point B, and now you're in the middle. It could go either way. But, when we get to that point, we will reevaluate it. We do have a lot of resistance. I do expect it to get stalled out in here. So what would be nice to see is we come up in 5 waves, we pull back in an ABC, right? And then we continue higher. So we'll talk about that as the days, as the chart starts to mature. But I'm liking what I'm seeing, and not just in Litecoin. I mean, if you look at, for example, the altcoin market, right? Basically the total 3, which is all the altcoins except Ethereum. It looks like we have a beautiful expanding flat. So we can see, right, we had this impulse to the upside, we came down in A, and we were talking about this too, for weeks, talking about us needing a correction. We came up here, we slightly broke the top, and then we came down. So it was an A, B, C. So basically an expanding flat. So, and then what's really interesting is we came down and we back tested the bull market support band. That's a very critical step, right? And for us to hold it is even more important. We had an impulse, and then we came back down, right? And we sort of held support in here, and now we're continuing higher. Now we are pulling back, right? It is going to be sort of corrective, acting correctively. So, what we've been talking about for the last couple, I would say the last 3 or 4 days, is getting back up in here into the retracement and then start to flag out a little bit before continuing to make an attempt to break out. So that's kind of where we at now. Going to Bitcoin, right? And I'm going to circle back to Litecoin and then tell you what I think the count is on it. But going back to Bitcoin, we can see an A, we come in for B, and then we came down for C. We slightly took out the low. We grabbed that liquidity. We had a nice wave to the upside. We have a pullback. The question is, are we going to find some support in here before heading back up? Or do we need to continue to head down to the bull market support band? So it'd be A, B, and C. That's still, the big question, right? Because we can see the altcoins successfully testing it and holding it, but Bitcoin has not yet done that. So that's still like, if Bitcoin comes down and test it, right? Because look how important it is. We can see, if I just zoom out here, you could see all of these areas right here, right? We broke above, we back tested the bull market support band, continued, back testing the bull market support band, again, we came up and we tested it again. So it's pretty important, right? I mean, last cycle, we only tested it once. So it could be that we don't test it at all, right? But if we don't test it, then usually the market will be a lot shorter. So a lot of people complain the last bull cycle was pretty short relative to the previous one, and that's because it didn't test it, right? It got too fast. It went too fast, too quickly. So, it's still up for debate if that's going to happen. Now, whatever the case may be, if it does or if it doesn't, the point is, we finish up this correction. I do believe this is a bullish correction and we are continuing to head up. So the big thing is, once Bitcoin really breaks out of here and starts to head higher, maybe we come down and test it first around 56, 55, 57K, around there. Once that occurs, I think we can see even a bigger recovery in the altcoins. I mean, when you look at THETA, for example, it's a prime example of a breakout, backtest the bull market support band, continue higher, right? Come down A, B, C, backtest the bull market support band. We come up, maybe a 1, 2, and then we continue higher. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. So going back to Litecoin, you can see, right, we came up and we broke above the bull market support band, and now we came down and it's beautifully holding above it, right? So that's always a good sign to see. So, what is it? Well, we can kind of see, a top here. We came down, we made a higher low, and we made another top, right? So it's really like a triple top up here. We came down, we made another top. So it's kind of like a double top, right? So double tops, again, they're meant to be broken when you have a rising demand line. So here's our supply line. This is where distribution comes in, right? People are giving their supply, and this is the demand line where people are demanding, right? So we can see when the demand line meets the supply line, something interesting can happen. Now this could be like an A, B, C, D, E, go. Something like that, right? So we can see, obviously, it's, some type of ascending triangle. So if I take the measured move, ballpark, just a ballpark figure, you're looking at around, about $200 or so. So if you look at the retracement on that, do we have confluence in the retracement? And we do, just about, hitting that 50% to the 618 of this move down. So yeah, that would make sense to me that we get back up into this area. That's what I've been anticipating and thinking this whole time it's been in reaccumulation. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it continues to develop. But from what I see, right, we came down, right, we hit we cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, right? And now it's cupping in. So you have a shoulder, you have a head, and now you're potentially developing another shoulder. So the measured move on that, approximately about 150 or so, 145, 150. So yeah, what we want to see is starting to round back up here. Obviously, it could turn into an ABC and retest the demand line, but to me, it's just a DCA opportunity. And then continue breaking out. Once we break out of here, right, a lot of people, what they do is they'll wait until we break out, and then we'll come all the way back down and back test it. And then once we back test it and confirm the new support, then people, enter their trades, whatever, and then we continue higher. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for, is to see, obviously, to see if we can break out of here, but also to see how this continues to move up. So that being said, what the whole thing could be, right, is some type of triangle, right? So we have this move down in A. We have 1, 2, 3 up for B. We have 1, 2, 3 down for C. And then we have 1, 2, 3 up for D. Now, maybe D's not finished. Maybe D gets up here. And then we have a very small one for E. So E could be relatively very, very small, right? It doesn't have to come all the way down. It's usually pretty quick. So what we have here, right, is some type of contracting triangle. Let me put it on this downward resistance line here. So we're looking at the price heading up into wave D. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. We're still waiting for 3. Come back up, and then we probably will get a small 3, and then finally get that big breakout. So timing is, unknown, but I could show you an example here. With Bitcoin, actually, we can see we also had somewhat of a contracting triangle. Now, they're not always perfect, but the point is the wave structure, right? So we have 3 in A, 3 in B, 3 in C. Then we come up in D, and then this tiny little thing here is E. So look how small E was, right? I mean, you can see how small D was. We have 1, 2, 3, and then we have 1, 2, tiny 3 here for wave E, and then we have that first 1, 2. We held the bull market support band, and then bam, we were off to the races. So it's a little different, right? But basically the same thing. It's the same thing really what's happening with XRP. You have an A, B, C. You come up for D, right? I think D's already finished with XRP potentially, and then now we're working on E for that move to the upside. You can see it kind of happening over here as well. You have an A, B, C. You come up for D, you come right down for E, and then bam. So, when I look at Litecoin, I see something that'll probably be around for a while. A lot of people, again, probably disregarded it. They get complacent. It's never going to do anything. But it's really, painting a picture here of something huge coming, I think. I think it's going to be pretty big, and it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. So if you've been holding Litecoin and you've been wanting to sell it for a long time, I would probably not financial advise, just keep it. Obviously, it moves a lot slower than others. That's because it's been correcting for the last 7 years. But again, it's creating a base, right? It's creating a base. Now, when this base breaks out, right, like they say, the bigger the base, the higher in space. So if you're an investor, hodler, and you're waiting, you don't mind waiting a couple years or more, or as looking at it as a longer term investment, then to me, it doesn't really matter because we have all the elements, right? I mean, I think we're close. We have the bull market, we have the bear market, we have the retracement, we have the reaccumulation, and we have now the sideways reaccumulation, that final step, right, before starting to make the attempt to break out. Now, as far as targets go, I can see this thing hitting, let's see here, ballpark around $650 would be a good target to have for Litecoin, up to about $700. And then if it really wants to show off, I would say around $1,000. Now, the Litecoin market cap is about 6.3 billion, so it's not that much. Not at all, really. It's pretty low. So that means we can get pretty high. We have more, basically we have more percentage potential, because when you look at where it's been, the Litecoin market cap, right, it spells a different story. Now, the previous cycle we did break out, so that was about $28 billion, and we're sitting here down at less than 7. So take that into consideration. Now, if I put a retracement here from this high down to the low, we could look at around 45. I think between 45 and 50 billion would be a decent target to have for Litecoin. It could even go even higher than that. Now I'm talking this cycle. Now down the road, obviously it can go a lot higher. The 4.236 is around 108 billion. We had some predictions from a few people saying 5 trillion within the next year. We'll see if that holds true for the whole market. But yeah, I think between $650 and $1,000 is not too far out of the question. Now, we could, if it really wanted to hit a 4.236, it could hit about $1,600. So could you imagine a $1,600 Litecoin? And it wouldn't be so out of the question, because if you look at Ethereum, if you look at a lot of other coins, they all surpassed. A lot of them surpassed their 4.236. I know not Ethereum didn't, but for example, if you look at Total 3, and I take the, this is Litecoin's all-time high, right, back in 2018, and I'm taking it in the same area, right? So the Total 3 came to about the 3.272. So if I applied that to Litecoin, that's about $1,200 for Litecoin, if it wanted to get that high. Now, again, I can't tell you the future. I don't know what it's going to be, but a minimum of $500 to $700, I think a minimum would be a good target to have. Now, again, this thing has developed a massive base, so I can't imagine what it's going to do when it finally breaks out, right? If it breaks out, nothing's a guarantee, but once this thing does, we can see some pretty interesting things developing. So it seems like it wants to do this, and that's just from looking at it. Now, as far as the short-term analysis, again, we are back above the bull market support band. I would like us to hold above it. If Bitcoin has to come back down to its bull market support band, we would probably end up losing it, which wouldn't be that bad. I would then look at it like this. We have 1, 2, 3, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have 1, 2, 3. So, and then that would probably mean this whole thing would be 1, 2, and 3. Something like that, which doesn't break the low, but it's basically a 1, 2, or an AB at least, right? An AB, and then looking for that C wave, which would be 5 waves back into the retracement level. And then from there, I could probably see a 3-wave move, and that would finish up wave E, and then we can start to take off from there. So it would be A, B, C, this would be D, and then we would get E and then go. So we're looking for 3 waves. So we have 1, 2, maybe we come down, hit the low, then come back up. It's possible. So we'll see about that. If you guys want more information, you can go check out my previous videos about these fractals and different Elliott wave counts. Also, finding confluence in other charts. I also put out a crypto rapid fire video and covered these coins if you want to check that out. So anyways, guys, are you bullish? Are you bearish? Let me know in the comment section. I mean, when you look at the on-chain analysis, it still suggests that we have quite a ways to go. I know the Hong Kong ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum are launching, I think tomorrow or something like that. I know, you know, the U.S. ETFs are still playing a big role. We also have the halvening that just passed by. So I believe once Bitcoin finishes up this correction, we're going to see some positive momentum for the altcoins. I haven't made a Litecoin video in a while. I thought I'd come in and drop one since the market's not doing too much today. But yeah, I'm a long-term believer in Litecoin. You know, Charlie Lee, you know, I don't know much about the guy, but I know he says that Litecoin is silver to Bitcoin is gold. So he came out with that proof of work concept between, you know, the two, the ratio of gold and silver, sort of, they wanted to imply that. And then also, you know, when Bitcoin becomes unattainable, what do people do? Like when gold became unattainable, right? People went to silver. So to me, you know, proof of work coins, right, really is Bitcoin, right? And then to me, Litecoin would be, you know, the second to come after. Now, it's all about, you know, people willing to buy it, but I think it's so saturated in people's heads that, I mean, everybody knows Litecoin, right? It's been around for a while. People can say it's dead, whatever, but I think, you know, I mean, look at Amazon. I'm not trying to compare it to Amazon, but like, look at a lot of these stocks. They went sideways for 10 years before going on crazy bull runs. So if Litecoin has definitely the name, the brand recognition, and then, you know, again, when Bitcoin becomes so unattainable to be mined, people will probably switch their mining operations, right? Because they're going to have all their mining equipment. What are they going to mine? Right? They're going to get fractions of a fraction of a Bitcoin, right? Obviously, they'll probably still do it, but I think a lot of people would then switch over to Litecoin, especially because Litecoin, when it breaks out, you bet your bottom dollar, I bet a lot of miners are going to come out and switch to Litecoin, right? Because, you know, there's still a lot of Litecoin out there. And, you know, once this huge base is broken, we're probably going to see, you know, some pretty big fireworks. I mean, because basically this is the ground floor, right? Litecoin is building a foundation, right? The bigger the foundation, the bigger I mean, how long and sideways this is continuing to go, the more long-term sustainability it will eventually have, the more likely it is to continue increasing in value. So to me, I think Bitcoin is, obviously the front runner, and it's taking all the thunder, even a lot of the altcoins. But again, once Bitcoin starts to calm down and go into distribution, that's when you get these big alt seasons. People rotate their overvalued Bitcoin into something undervalued, and that's when you can get these big moves. So it's like, to me, if I had $100, would I buy Bitcoin or would I buy Litecoin? Well, yeah, that really depends on your preference. But for me, I'm looking at it from percentages, and I see more percentage value. At the right time. Maybe I wouldn't do it today, but at the right time, I can see this thing really beating Bitcoin as far as percentage terms go. Because again, when Bitcoin is at 70K or so, and it gets to 100K and then 200K, it's really not that much in percentage terms, right? So I think when you look at this, you have a beautiful W, right, in the shape of a cup, right, and then now you're sort of doing that again, so you can see the W shape, and then you can see the W shape in here. So that to me is also pretty interesting. When you look at the line chart, right, you can see the W, right, in a cup, and then you come down here and you also see a W, right? So the W obviously isn't finished. And then once that occurs, you have a cup and a potential handle, right? So the measured move of that ballpark is insane. I don't think that's even possible, but that's about $3,400 or so. I would more or less do it from here. And that's still pretty insane. But I mean, if you do it on linear scale, it is on log scale, so keep that in mind. But just look, that's why I like to look at the line chart sometimes. When you look at the symmetry in here, you could see this W basically is just a fractal of this. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Litecoin long term. Again, this is a long-term chart. It's been doing this for the last 7 years. So I would say give it some time. It's a good DCA, sort of set it and forget it type of coin. Anyways, guys, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you want to support the channel, you can always do so. That would be very appreciative. And if you can hit that like button, that would be also amazing, and drop a comment and let me know what you guys think about it. And also, if you have any coins you want me to take a look at, drop them in the comment section, and I might take a look at them at the next rapid fire video. And other than that, I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.